Good evening, tribe. This is Michelle Norris. I am coming to you live from my office in Austin, Texas. Had to look around and make sure this is exactly where I am. It's been a crazy last week and weekend and everything, and I am excited about bringing this particular live to you because we have decided to create a partnership that we're excited to announce to you. And so my guest is actually a very good friend of mine who lives here in Austin with his beautiful wife and beautiful daughters. And I'm super excited to be partnering with him. So I'm going to give you a little bit about my guest. Trey Stinnett is an award-winning workshop trainer and North American director for Roger James Hamilton's Genius Group. It's a $100 million group of companies leading the entrepreneur movement. And I can tell you, we have been involved with Trey and with Roger for a little over a year now. And it's made a huge impact in our business, particularly when it comes to building our teams and actually doing hiring. And so this is something that I definitely had planned to bring to PaleoFX and to Health Entrepreneur FX this year. And so obviously with COVID-19 and the reschedule of PaleoFX and of course Health Entrepreneur FX change things up a little bit. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're pivoting and what we're doing and everything. And then, so welcome, Trey. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Michelle. I'm excited to see what kind of conversation we can have here for everyone.
Yes. This is the thing, lots of things have changed, like in just, actually in the last week, really since the last few weeks, things have changed dramatically. And it's been really interesting. Obviously, PaleoFX has had to completely pivot. We are the largest paleo platform and event in the world. The thing is that lots of people haven't really gotten the platform part of it. So we actually had intended, and this is, and let me say this to you guys. One of the things about Roger James Hamilton is that he is a futurist. And so really based on some recommendations that from talking to Roger and actually just hearing some of his thoughts about what was coming, what made the decision for me to start pivoting PaleoFX, because one of the things that he said is he believed that we would probably be hitting a recession by the end of this year, at the beginning of next year. So my intention was to pivot our company. And our plan was to pivot it and launch this stuff right after PaleoFX, which obviously would have been this last weekend. So we're getting ready to launch everything that we were getting ready now within the next week or two. And so it's been really interesting. Of course, no one knew, including Roger, that this would come at the hands of COVID-19 and overnight. So anyway, but the thing is that all of us are pivoting. So I want to hear kind of what you and Grace are doing for your business.
Yeah, I mean, love to talk about this stuff. And yeah, I mean, Roger was talking about this a year ago. For everybody who doesn't know who Roger is, and my intro made it sound like I'm really cool, like $100 million company. That's his company, not mine. But Genius Group is basically three different companies. Entrepreneur Resorts, which is an incredible company that owns a ski resort in Czech Republic, owns a resort in Bali, as well as a game lodge in South Africa. So it's an amazing place where entrepreneurs can come from all over the world to learn and be immersed in these amazing environments. And as you can imagine, none of those are open right now. The second company is Entrepreneurs Institute. And what we did for the most part was educate entrepreneurs on how to get into flow, how to build their teams, just like we did with you and Keith with PaleoFX, is figuring out, okay, well, what are the different archetypes of entrepreneurs or workers that I have inside of my company, and what work will they do best? And we've been able to really help people with that. But we've typically done that in person. So we had these live events. I was supposed to speak, I do a workshop at PaleoFX even. So definitely feeling that shift and pivot. And the third company of those three companies is Genius U, which is an online platform, which, as you said, Roger's been thinking for years as a futurist, what is it going to look like when the economic shifts happen? And I think the most important thing to understand throughout all of this is we tend to look at time with our limited human brains as a linear thing. right? And so when this whole like COVID-19 started happening, we were introduced to exponential thinking. Like, what would it look like if the numbers doubled and then doubled and then doubled? And what was started out as a couple hundred people or a couple thousand people in Wuhan quickly became 2 million people with this disease. Now, I'm not an expert on any of the disease statistics and the numbers or where that's headed, but when you think about just the world of exponential thinking, it really serves us to understand that time does not move linearly. It moves in cycles. And so understanding those cycles, if you can kind of see what's happening right now, there's actually very clear things that you can do to shift and to pivot. But the thing with a pivot is if you pivot 45 degrees in the right direction, you're on point. But if you pivot 45 degrees in the wrong direction, you're worse than where you were to begin with. Mm-hmm. So really understanding how to navigate pivoting is hugely important. And that's what Wealth Dynamics allows us to do, because it's really about understanding ourselves, our teams, and where there's trust already in the marketplace. So, the short answer to your question, like, what are we doing? What are Grace and I doing? How are we shifting and pivoting? Well, for us, it was really about how do we actually continue to do what we do best, which isn't make money, but serve entrepreneurs. And so what do the entrepreneurs need? Well, the question was, what do they trust us to provide? And we knew that what an entrepreneur would trust us to provide is insight and direction, help them be able to create a plan. So we shifted the business away from putting on big events about the mental models into let's put on something very specific to directly answer the new needs in the market, which come down to two things. You either have an entrepreneur who, like you guys, was doing great, business is rocking, you got a big event, and then all of a sudden COVID's like, no, you can't do that anymore. Or the exact opposite, which is somebody who was cruising along and then COVID happens and maybe they sell hand sanitizer or electric bikes or something that people suddenly need more of, and their business is taken off, but they didn't prepare for that. And so they're literally working 50 hours a week, right? Or 50 hours a day, trying to get all this work done. And it's just too much work for them and they're out of flow. And so whether you're low on cash flow or you're low on time flow, both of those could be a result of what's happening right now, and both require a pivot. The smart thing is to pivot to where there's already trust, so you're not having to start all over, which unfortunately is what I'm seeing a lot of people do. They're just changing their branding. They're like, oh, I used to be an internet marketer teaching you how to like build funnels. Now I'm going to teach you how to be recession proof. And it's like, well, you're 29. Like, I don't believe you that you're going to be able to help me be recession proof, because I don't know that you've lived through even one recession, let alone the last two or three. And so, but they just do these things because it's like, oh, well, that's going to sound good from marketing's perspective. Yeah, but is the trust there? And so what we've really been about for the last like 5 weeks is following our own lines of trust and then teaching other entrepreneurs how to do the same.
Oh, that is so amazing. And it's been really incredible to actually be part of the group and be able to learn the things that, particularly because Roger has lived through, as have I and Keith, lived through a number of recessions. And so it's really great to have somebody that's really got that kind of mind and ability to vision forward. And like I said earlier, he's somewhat of a futurist. So it's really great to actually be able to follow someone like that really kind of knows what's happening and sees the trends in the marketplace. Yeah. So tell me, what do you do if your business is dried up because of COVID-19?
Yeah, that's the question, right? There's a lot of people that are like, I was going this way and everything stopped, or maybe they were already kind of in trouble. So the answer actually depends on where you were before this happened. Right. So, you mentioned Roger being a futurist. One of the things he says is the further you want to look into the future, the further you have to look into the past. So if you're trying to extrapolate what the world's going to look like 500 years from now, you don't base that off of everything that's happened since the consciousness revolution of the 60s, right? You're going to go back. Well, what's happened since like the founding of America? And you're going to look at a bigger picture. So, what I say is like, all right, if you're going to look forward, let's look at what's happening right now. We're in a situation that only happens maybe once 100 years. Mm-hmm. So anything that we've learned in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like is potentially inaccurate for the current situation. So if I look at a bigger scale, I'll say, okay, what have we known for thousands of years? So the work that Roger teaches in Wealth Dynamics is based off of a 5,000-year-old text called the I Ching. Now, the I Ching, if you don't know what that is, basically is the text that the Chinese have used to be able to navigate all sorts of things, from the changing of the seasons to the relationships that people have between each other. But that's also what Carl Jung used when he distilled the main archetypes, right? So if you know anything about Myers-Briggs or anything like that, this is all based off this work. So when you understand the way that the I Ching works, it really is about natural flows of energy, stuff that typically in the West we've rejected up until like the last 15 years. And now we're starting to realize through science that actually a lot of the Eastern truth really is true. So understanding all of that, if you're right now in a place where it's like, okay, my business is dried up, then the first thing you have to do is take a look at it. Where was I before this? So if before this happened, you were already broke, you were already in a bad spot, you weren't bringing in any money, and like you were barely getting along, and now things got worse, then it's time to really take a step back and rewind to like when things were actually good. Right. And now, if you were good up until 5 weeks ago and then all this happened, well, then you can just look back 5 weeks. So whether we're looking back 5 weeks or we're looking back a couple years, if you've been in this situation for a while, the question becomes, where are your lines of trust? In other words, who already trusts you to do what? So when you and I started talking about what you guys are up to, like the whole Health Entrepreneur FX, like you've put this on for years. Health entrepreneurs trust you to be able to bring together the right minds who have the right answers and solutions and tools for health entrepreneurs to be able to use in their businesses to be able to move the needle, right? That people already trust you to do. Whether you deliver that in a physical event like you have in the past, or you do what you're doing now, which is really pivoting that to be able to be a platform, the trust is the same. So the challenge that a lot of people have is that they're trying to do something new. They're like, oh, what's the opportunity here? Maybe I could go try and like corner the market on masks and gloves or something like that. I mean, even if you're successful with that, that business is over in 3 months, 6 months, right? So it's like, where is my trust? And for a lot of people, this actually is not the most fun advice, because it could be eating a little bit of humble pie. It's saying, okay, well, I actually only have like a handful of people who trust me, and they don't trust me to do the work that I enjoy the most. They trust me to do the stuff that I'm just the most proficient at. And sometimes you just got to like step up and do your duty and like get it done to get the cash flow in. But if you're not in that situation, if you're not like, I have to just go back and work for 1 or 2 people self-employed, if you can actually have a community, if you have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people who know who you are, who know of your brand, right? This is actually an awesome opportunity for you to use the existing lines of trust you already have to introduce those markets to new solutions that are like customized to their current problems, right? So it's like, okay, what's happening right now in the market with health entrepreneurs? You've made a pivot. You're making a really powerful pivot. And that's why we're going to do the training that's coming up, where I'm actually going to teach people how to actually build a plan for 90 days based off your trust, based off of like, Roger has these mechanisms, which I won't dive in too deeply on this call or interview, whatever you call this, which is you figure out what your wealth type is, right? What's your profile type? That's how we build our teams. But then also, what's your wealth level? Right? Which, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you've kind of been solopreneur up till now, and you've made some cash. Maybe you put together 100, 150 grand a year, and you've had a good lifestyle. But if I were to ask you for like your P&L, if I were to ask you for like, I don't know, your balance sheet, you probably look at me a little strange. Like, I don't have those things. Well, that's okay, because there's certain things that you don't even need to know as an entrepreneur until you get to certain levels. And a lot of times we find ourselves over consuming information because we don't know what we shouldn't actually be looking at. And there's just too much info. So the thing I would say right now is stop reading new info, stop trying to like go out and find a brand new market to go into, and look at your current market. Where is their trust already? And then downshift maybe to where people will trust you the most. And without the context of all the like colors and levels of entrepreneurship that we'll go over, during the free training, suffice it to say that there's definitely a place where you can go right now to generate cash, no matter who you are. May not look exactly the way you want, may not look the way you're thinking, but it's definitely there. So that would be my advice to someone who's had the dry up situation, is like, look for those lines of trust, whether they're with one person or they're with your existing community, and then find a way to bring a new solution to them, right? This could be something like, I gave the example the other day, salons, a lot of people, they dye hair. Right now, they can't do that. Well, I live with women. My mom's a woman. I'm hearing stuff about roots growing out. Seems to me like if you're a salon, you could probably put together custom root kits with the color that that your client likes, and you could start shipping those out to them, because they already trust you to know what color to put in their hair, way more than they trust themselves to go to Walgreens and buy it, right? So just thinking a little bit outside the box where those lines of trust are can be hugely powerful. And then, of course, knowing where your strengths are and what you can trust yourself to do by knowing your profile type, that also is massively powerful. And that's really what you and Keith have been digging into for the last year.
Yes, exactly. And I want to shout a few people out. Frank, I see Frank is on. I see someone that said, hello, love, hello back to you. I can't tell who you are. So if you're joining us, please.
They're definitely calling me love.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay. It was to you, not me. Can you please say hello, tell us where you're from, and put your name just in case, because some names are coming up and some are not. I'm not real sure why. And if you have a question for Trey, please feel free to put it into the comments and I will get him to answer it. And like Trey was talking about, we are going to be doing a free webinar for entrepreneurs on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. I am actually going to put the link to register for the webinar in the comments right now. And there you can go and you can get registered for the webinar. It's free. Please join us. Lots of excellent information, and just learning your wealth dynamics is, gosh, that is just such an amazing thing. And that's been super powerful. Even outside of the things that we've been able to learn through you and through Roger and Grace, and it's been amazing for us. Anyway, put your where you are from, any kind of questions in the comments, and I'll get Trey to answer those. So I just wanted to ask you, so what do you do if your business is taken off and you're actually really slammed right now? You're just grinding to try to get things done, kind of like in the way that you said a little while ago. So now I've got hand sanitizer and my company is now taken off, and because of COVID-19, and I'm killing myself. What do I do?
Yeah. I think that one is probably where we help the most, is with people that are already in flow. And then it's like, but I'm out of flow, in flow, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a friend who is the owner of an electric transportation company. So individual electric transportation devices such as bikes and stuff like that. And we were talking this weekend and she was saying, like, we're crushing it right now, but I'm spending like all my time doing customer service and sales and support. And I happen to know that she's what we call a star profile in wealth dynamics, which is the same thing you are, right? Yeah. Which is somebody that's really great at like shining the light on stuff. So she'd actually be better off promoting than she would be doing the day-to-day like customer service, but she's doing that. And then her partner / husband, who's a creator profile type, the same as me, he would be best like coming up with the next electric bike or the next cool thing. But he's spending all of his time like setting up Zendesk and like engineering like the analytics and like making sure all that stuff works. Both of them are completely capable of doing those. Those are what we call in their areas of competence, so their zones of competence, but none of that work is in their zone of genius. So even though the money's rolling in, they're tired, they're overworking, they're burning out. And that happens to a lot of us. And it's not that they don't know they need team. They've tried to hire a team, right? They've tried to bring people in, but it wasn't until they had the wealth dynamic system that they could even get close to knowing which people they should hire. Like the just small difference between a creator and a mechanic, for example, is like the mechanic could sit there all day engineering the systems, or the supporter, which is what Grace, my wife, is. She could sit there all day handling the customer inquiries and helping people and connecting them and feel completely filled up. But a star is not going to feel that way. So it really starts by understanding like what is most in your flow, number one. Who should you be bringing onto your team to like help relieve some of that pressure based off what their profile is? But then also, where are the lines of trust with those people? So we were getting into this conversation. And I was like, okay, well, who have you looked at? And they're like, well, we looked on, Upwork and Fiverr and Craigslist, and we put all these, job things out, and we have all these applications, but how do we, go through them and select the people? And there's actually some really simple and obvious things that you can do that they don't seem obvious, but once I tell them to you, it's like, oh, I should have just done that. And the short answer for them was, look, you got a community of 1,000+ people that have purchased from you in the last year. Go find your team inside that community. They already know, like, love you. They know your product inside and out. Like, that's where you need to go. And it was like such an awakening moment, but it's simple. And that's the kind of mindset shifts that happen when you just see the world through the lens of wealth dynamics. There's 8 different types of people. They have 8 different ways that you can trust them to show up. If you know which of those are, you can team them up. You can predict what's going to happen. And then being able to look at your entrepreneur level, right? So one of my first questions to them was, how many customers do you have? If they would have been like, I have 10 customers, I would not have told them to go to their customer base to get their people. So it's understanding all of those intricate details. So the main thing right now is if you're out of flow, and I mean like time flow, right? Typically that means that you're providing a lot of value. The market loves you. They're spending a lot of money with you, but you're low on flow. So to increase the flow, you need to add what we call leverage. And so on this training that we do on Wednesday, I'm actually going to dive into what's the difference between value and leverage. Which activities do you do that are value? Which ones are you doing that are leverage? We'll draw all the distinctions there so you can make those decisions yourself. And then which people are actually the best at doing value and which people are the best at doing leverage. So you can know, like, those are your two pedals, right? That you're able to keep your go-kart going straight with those two levers, right? So do I do value or do I do leverage? And we dig into that. But really understanding that if you're at a point right now where the money's coming in more and you need to like get your time back so that you can work on your business instead of inside of it, the answer is team. There's no such thing as multiple streams of income. There's only multiple teams of income.
Yeah, well, you answered my next question was, when should you build a team? When
you're running low on flow, because a lot of people also try and build their team too soon.
Yeah.
Which also comes down to trust. If you're a brand new business with no trust in the marketplace, the only way you can build a team is to pay people to work for you. That's not as fun as like attracting people who are already down with the same mission as you, because there's only so much you can pay a person to show up and do. And most people who are willing to show up just for pay aren't ever going to go the extra mile. They're not going to think critically. They're not going to work past, clock out time. And that's okay if you're at a certain level in business. But if you're trying to produce at like 1,000 or 10,000 customer level, and you have those people in your business, you're constantly going to be babysitting them. So you're not going to be able to work on your business because you're going to have to be doing that. So there's also a lot to understanding the trust levels, not just the types.
Yeah. That's like just brilliant. It's a total game changer for whenever you are trying particularly to scale a little bit. I know that that's one of the things that took us quite a while was to get there. And this has become such an integral part of our hiring process and how we bring people in. And we have, hired from our audience, from our tribe and from our fans. So it's been, it's definitely made such a huge difference. So you can talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering on this webinar on Wednesday?
Yeah, for sure. So, I've watched a lot of webinars. I've done a lot of webinars. And for me, if somebody's going to spend their time, like actually come out and invest time listening to what I have to say, they're going to need to walk away with something tangible, something they can use from the webinar, whether they, want to talk to me afterwards or not. Like that time they spent with me, I totally get. Everybody, especially if you're watching this right now, you're a busy person, right? So what does it need to look like? So we thought about this a lot and we said, okay, well, what are people asking us for the most right now? So we're definitely going to go into the profile types, understanding what your Wealth Dynamics profile type is, understanding how they're different and what that even means and why it's relevant. We're definitely going to go into that. We're going to talk about the 9 levels of business so you can understand where is your business consciousness, right? So like, what do you need to be aware of and what have you been aware of? Right. So there's also a lot around this conversation where if you've gotten up to the point in your business where you have like multiple teams running completely systemized, but maybe you sold that business or maybe that business went kaput because of COVID, like there's actually very, very simple steps you can take to get back to where you were much more quickly than somebody who's never been there before, obviously, right? But even in a completely new industry, it's not going to be like intuitive. So it's understanding what those steps are. So we're going to go over what are the 9 different levels of business. They start at the bottom, which is like your broke brother-in-law is going backwards all the time, going all the way up to like Gandhi. So there's nobody that's not on that spectrum. It goes the whole length. And then talking about what are the steps to actually climb up the wealth spectrum, which is what we call that. We're going to dig into that, as well as the enterprise levels, which is how many people in the market trust you, and then using that as like a measurement tool to know what are the actual steps you should take next. So I usually cover this stuff in like my $2,000 workshop when we hold those live, or I'll actually go through what are the steps at this level, what are the steps at that level. Now, obviously this isn't going to be long enough for me to do what I would do across 2 days, but I'm just taking like the best pieces out of it so we can get clear on like, who are you and what should you be doing, right? And then what's your plan? Like, what are you going to do for the next 4 weeks? What are you going to do for the next 90 days? And really encouraging you, like, when you get off of that webinar, actually make the plan, like write it out. What am I going to do for the next 4 weeks? What am I going to do for the next 90 days? And the reason we say 4 weeks and 90 days, 4 weeks is about cash flow. Like, what can you do in the next 4 weeks to put cash in your bank, right? If you're an entrepreneur and COVID knocked you off your kilter, you should have already figured something out by now, right? If you haven't, then there's a very specific path I'm going to tell you to take on that call, right? The 90 days is not as much about the cash flow as it is about your trajectory. Because again, you don't want to pivot 45 degrees in the wrong direction. So you want to pivot. Maybe it's not exactly where you want to go. Like, let's say your ultimate destination as an entrepreneur is like northeast, right? You're going that direction. Maybe that northeast to you looks like $1 million company or 100 employees, or maybe it looks like a 1-employee solopreneur business where you're making 6 figures on the beach. Whatever that is, we want to make sure that the 4-week plan is at least in that direction. So if it's northeast, let's go north or east. Let's just make sure we're not going south or west. So we want to go towards what we're ultimately aiming for. That's the 90-day container, but then make sure that the first 4 weeks are producing cash flow, because for a lot of people, the 90th day is irrelevant if they don't have the 4th week taken care of.
Right. Amen, for sure. I love all of that. And I'm so excited to be able to get a chance to be able to do this with you and to bring this to our entrepreneurs in our space, for sure. One of the things that, one of the reasons why we ever even started doing the Health Entrepreneur event was because we honestly believe and we see that the entrepreneurs, particularly in the paleo and the health space, and particularly our part of our tribe, these are the people that are part of the new paradigm. And we are heading towards that new paradigm at a breakneck speed right now. So the big thing is that so many people are really passionate about what they do, but they're not really sure how to run a business, how to build a team, how to scale, when to scale, all of these things. And so we wanted to bring them the best advisors, the people that have done it, the people that have already been there, that have already made all the mistakes, so that we can help them be able to build their businesses. Because we need, one of the things we say all the time is that revolutions fail when they fail to have something in place when they take down the old paradigm. And so we want to have our people ready for this new paradigm, and it is coming, and it is coming very fast, especially with what's happened with COVID-19. So we want to make sure that you're all empowered, that you all know what to do. And we want to make sure that you come out of this much stronger and really poised and ready to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be set before us, because there will be a lot. And also knowing and having trust and having advice from someone that knows what are the things that you should take advantage of, and what are the things that you should say, oh wait, that would be a really great idea, but your enterprise is not at that impact level yet. So you need to wait until you build this. And then when you build this, you can go after that. And so I'm really, really excited about bringing this to our tribe, because I think it's going to be a game changer for especially what's happening right now. So the last thing I want to ask you is, can you tell them why your advice is different from what everybody else is talking about right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple things you said that are just so valuable that I want to also touch on is, leadership during a crisis is actually like one of the best times. That's when you find out like who the true leaders are, right? Because there's some people right now that they're not leading, they're running. They're trying to figure out, how do I get cash? And maybe you're just in a spot in your life right now where you need to be focused on cash. But the question is, I've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs back here on my wall, and I keep an eye on that because I know that not every member of my community is at self-actualization. Some of them need their physiological needs met right now. And so I get that. But once your physiological needs are met, if you're in a situation right now where, your fridge is full, right, and your gas tank's full, and maybe you've only got a month or 3 of bills in the bank, but you're okay, now's actually a great time to step up and lead. If you think about some of the biggest companies that we didn't even know the names of when the 2008 crisis happened, there was no Uber, right? There was no YouTube. Like, these things were all like purchased and taken huge, or started even after the Great Recession, many of them during the Great Recession. And so right now, while COVID's crazy, we actually haven't seen what's going to happen to the economy. Like, that's still coming. So it feels like maybe the worst is over. Abbott's saying we're going to open things up Friday, but in a lot of ways, it's what's going to happen to the economy that's going to require entrepreneurs to step up. And, maybe I don't say it enough because in my circles, it's just taken as a given, but it needs to be said. And that is that the governments aren't going to save us. The big corporations aren't going to save us. The educators aren't going to save us. So it's going to have to be us that saves us, right? It's going to have to be the entrepreneurs. And so that's the whole reason I'm here. That's my purpose. My dharma is I want to help entrepreneurs, partly because I am one, yes, but also because I see that entrepreneurs are the only people that are going to make the biggest change. And I've got little girls, and I want to know that they're going to live in a world that's at least as good, if not better, than the one that I grew up in. And if you understand the cycles of history, we are in crisis time right now, But what's coming next is actually arising. It's this amazing economy that's going to be birthed out of what could be, some painful contractions. So understanding all of that, like, why is what I'm going to talk about different from almost everything I'm hearing right now? Well, it's really because this comes from ancient wisdom. This comes from like philosophical principles. And it's not a silver bullet strategy. It's not a, business in a box. Like, I can't promise you that, like, if you follow steps A through Z, you're going to have the same results as like this testimonial client over here. Like, that's all great for people that are selling tools. This isn't a tool. This isn't even an app for your phone. This is the operating system. I'm going to be showing you like how it works. There's only 8 programs you can run on this operating system. You're going to run one of those 8 programs and get to wealth faster than any other program. And then you can work with other people who are running the other programs. And now all of a sudden you're running multiple programs towards the same outcome. So I kind of went a little weird there with like tech and stuff, but I like to think of this as really looking at it as like there's a computer code. And if you understand that, and you understand that it permeates all of the world, right? There's like, I think the number $7 trillion a day typically changes hands across the global economy. So the wealth is on the move. Your job is to figure out how to actually get some of that 7 trillion, not go over in some other spot where there's no money being made and come up with something out of thin air and try and like make money from that. It's, where's the money already? And then how do I access it and then pivot from there? So we're really going to be digging into kind of the mindset side of stuff, which most people right now are just talking about tools. We're going to go a lot deeper, and we're going to talk about the full operating system. Most people are using stuff that's based off what they're seeing, and they're just like, here's what worked for me. And many of those strategies worked pre-COVID, and now they're not working. So they're selling the strategies, which is a whole other conversation. This, yes, is based off of what we're seeing with our clients actually using it and it's working, but it's actually really based on something much, much older and more principled that's weathered multiple recessions.
Right. And I want to go back to something that you said about the entrepreneurs, because I completely 100% agree with you. It is the entrepreneurs that are going to get us out of all of this mess.
Yeah.
I don't think just entrepreneurs getting entrepreneurs out. I think they're going to get the majority of the population out of the mess that we're currently in, and because we're the only ones that innovate, we're the only ones that create, we're the only ones that bring things new, and so I really heavily believe in that. And then the other thing is that, like you said, everybody's like, right now we're in a crisis mode. Yes, we are. But do you know that there were more billionaires made in the 2008 market crash than any other time in history? More billionaires made. And so lots of billionaires are no longer billionaires over this whole thing, 176 of them to be exact. We just feel so sorry for them right now. They're just multimillionaires now. But the thing is, this is the opportunity. This is a really great time to really, really hone what is your genius. And this is one of the things, too, that we hear all the time from people is, oh, you need to work on your weakness. You need to work on. No, you don't. And that is the one thing that I realized. It doesn't matter how much I work on my weaknesses, they're just not going to get that much better. What I do and what I know that has worked and has been really impactful for Palo Effects is me working in my genius and letting other people do their genius in the areas that I'm not genius. And so that's been one of the most impactful things for me to do as a CEO and as the leader of this company, is to get out of the way and stop doing the stuff that I shouldn't be doing, because I can't actually continue to innovate, create, and have vision and create all of these things if I'm, working on the books, or I'm working on, which is not my genius. So I'm just like, I really, really appreciate you coming to do this for my tribe and everything. And you guys, I'm going to put the link in the comments again one more time right now. You can sign up for the free webinar, and it is a free webinar on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. Please sign up and register and join us, because I promise you the information that you are going to get on this webinar is going to be amazing. It will be game changing, and it's going to really help you figure out what is your next move.
You got it.
Do you have anything more to add to that?
I mean, you've done a great job, and I really do appreciate you inviting me to come speak to your tribe. And I really was excited to do it in person, like seeing the time hops this year from last year's. I'm like, oh, it should be right now.
Yeah.
This last weekend. But I just got to say, like, whether you can make it and you can join us or not, please spend some time really considering how you're going to play this. Like, what is going to be your story? COVID-19 happened. 2020 happened. What did you do? What did you make happen? How did you come out of it a better person? How did you come out of it a better leader? And how did you come out of it on top? And if you don't have the answers to that right now, then I think one of the best things you can do is join us on Wednesday. Was it 1 p.m. Central? Yes. And we're going to be diving into all this stuff, and I'm going to teach it to you, and you can use it to go out there and make money, yes, but more importantly, make a positive, powerful impact in other people's lives. And as Michelle said, be the person that actually gets us out of this.
Yeah. And you know what? This is one of the things that I want to say. One of the reasons, like Keith and I were really super attracted to Wealth Dynamics, to Trey and Grace, and to what we're working in right now, Roger James Hamilton, is the piece, the consciousness piece. It is the purposeful business. It's the people that are doing things to change the world for the better. And these are the entrepreneurs that we want to make sure that we support. And our good friend Artemis is on and watching and everything. So thanks, Artemis. And Artemis is part of this group, amazing group too. So you guys, please register. Wednesday, it is a free webinar at 1 p.m. Central Time. I promise it's going to definitely be worth your time. And I am looking forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you so much, Trey, for joining me and doing this for my tribe. I appreciate it so much.
Of course. Thank you, Michelle.
All righty. You guys have a wonderful evening. And I cannot remember, but I think Keith is back on tomorrow. So join him tomorrow. I know it's posted on the Facebook page. We've been so busy. I haven't even can't keep up with our schedule right now. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks.